training, we'll walk you through specific examples on how to create pivot tables. You should be using the How to Create Pivot Table for Data Analysis Word document that I've opened here. And there's also dummy data that should be provided that you can use to recreate the pivot tables exactly. You can also have the option of using your own data set and just following along on how to create the pivot tables. So we're going to talk about the number and percent of students scoring level 3+ by teacher course, the distribution of achievement levels by teacher course, the learning gains by teacher course, results by course, and then results by student demographics. So we're going to get started. I'm going to move over to the data. So as we talked about in the first training, you want to create a pivot table. So once you've got your pivot table created, we'll get started. So basically following the general outline of the training and then maybe providing some more details as well. So the first table we're going to create is the number and percent of students scoring level 3+ by teacher course. So one thing is important to remember, you must really understand your data. And in this case, this data has the students are duplicated in this data set. So just as a reminder, talked about in the first training, you can see that this student, Allison Beach, is in this data set 3 times, and she has 3 separate teachers. So if you're running a report by teacher, and you create a pivot table, this student will show up under each of these 3 teachers. So she'll actually be counted 3 times. So that's not a problem if that's the way you want to look at the data. You want to count that student for each of the teachers because they all share responsibility for her. So that's just something to keep in mind as you move through this data. So the students will be counted multiple times if the student is in multiple courses with a teacher or in multiple teachers' courses. So that's another way a student can be duplicated, is if the student is in multiple courses with the same teacher. So we're going to start by building the pivot table. So in the column box, you're going to pull down level 3+. Let's go to the bottom. Pull down level 3+. We're also going to put level 3+ in the values. And then we're also going to pull down teacher name. So like we talked about before, because a student could be in multiple teacher courses, there may be duplicated students if you leave it like this. So something you can do is you can go up to course code, pull that down, and then you would look at each of the teachers' specific courses, and that would be a unique, essentially a unique class for that teacher. That is not always the case in everyone's data, so you may be able to just run your report by teacher if your data is a little bit more simple than this data set. It just kind of depends on what you have available. So the way you would read this chart is, let's scroll down to look at Caitlin Tripoli. So in her class, for this first course, she had 0 students that were level 1, 2, and 1 student that was a level 3 plus, with a total of 1 student. For her next class, she had 5 students that are level 1, 2, and 2 students that were level 3 plus, with a total of 7 students. So that's kind of how you would read this data. This top highlighted dark and bold would be the aggregate of all of these courses together. So you may not want to use that because, for example, the same student could be in 554Z and 45Z. So you could have the same student here, so you wouldn't want to aggregate those. So you may want to just use the specific course data. So one thing you can do, often when we look at numbers, we also want to look at percent. So in order to convert this to a percentage, you want to click on any number on the pivot table, right click, summarize values by, or sorry, show values as percent of row total. And then this will give you the percent of students in each course with each teacher. And then to convert it back, you would just right click, show values as, no calculation, and then that converts it back to a number. So just to make this a little bit easier to look at, I am going to remove course code so it's a little bit easier to look at. So we'll just kind of pretend that this is unduplicated data for moving forward, but just keep that in mind as you look at your data. So right now we have the percent number of students that are level 1, 2 or level 3 plus. There are other indicators that we could put up here in columns to get different data. So say we want to look at the distribution of scores. You could go up to current year achievement level and pull that down. And then this will give you the full range of how well students did. So let's look at a teacher that has a lot of kids. So in Mike Gadro's class, you'll see that Hea has 45 students. 6 of them were level 1, 14 of them were level 2, 16 were level 3, 4 were level 7. I'm sorry, 7 were level 4, and 2 were level 5. So you can kind of see how spread student response to student outcomes are to make determinations about how well students did. Again, just as a reminder, if you want to convert this to a percentage, click on any number here, right click, show values as, percent of row total, and then that converts it to a percentage for you. If you don't want this many decimals, you can highlight the field and right click, format cells, hit that percentage, decrease this to 1 decimal place or 0 decimal places, and then it will convert it to a percentage that may be a little bit easier to read for you. Then you can right click again and do no calculation to convert it back to a number. So another thing you might want to do is monitor student growth. So you could take out achievement level, and then you could pull down learning gains. And then, if the things were still in percentage, so just highlight here, go back to general, and it will move it back to a number for you. So in this case, the yes means the student earned a learning gain, and the no means the student did not earn a learning gain. And then this little blank column showed up because we have students without scores. So what you can do here is go up to column label, click the down arrow, unselect blank, and then it kind of cleans up your table a little bit. So this is, the same thing here, and you can convert it to a percentage. You can see the percent of students earning learning gains as well. So if you want to look at, you can also, instead of looking by teacher name, look just by the course code, or you can use course description depending on how complicated your data is. You can look at grade 5 ELA or grade 4 ELA. You also may not want to look at by course or grade at all. You want to see overall. So you want to see by student demographics. You want to look at outcomes by grade level, by race, ethnicity, by disability, by English language learner status. So the next table we're going to look at is by student demographics. So we'll just put these back for now. So let's take grade level, pull that down. And then we're going to take, go all the way to the bottom and find duplicate remover part and put that in the filter. Then let's look for current year achievement level. Put that in columns and also put that in values. So first, what we're going to do is we want to filter on duplicate remover marks and select unique or first occurrence. Again, this is going to take out any duplicated student, because all that we're concerned about here is the total number of students in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. And this will give you your total number of students with the assessment score. So what you can do to further disaggregate the data, so say you want to look at race, ethnicity, you could just go up there and pull that right under grade. So this would tell you by grade 3, the student performance for Black, Hispanic, multiracial, and white students. Alternatively, if this is too busy for you and you just want to look at, for example, let's say you want to look at grade 5 student performance by race. You could take grade and move it up to filters. You could go and select grade 5. Now you're looking at just grade 5 students, their performance by race, ethnicity. So that's an alternative way to kind of filter and analyze your data. So you just have to remember that you're only looking at grade 5 students, but it kind of makes your chart a little less busy. It just depends on what you're doing and how you want to do that. Again, you could do it the other way as well. Let's kind of filter this. Say you want to look at all grade levels, but you only want to look at Black student performance. Could filter on Black, so then you're looking at all 3 grade levels, and then you're looking at only Black student performance. So the filter just kind of allows you to simplify your data a little bit. You can use that kind of interchangeably. That's also helpful if you're filtering by too many things. So say we have race ethnicity here, but then you wanted to look at students with disabilities. So you want to look at by racial category, students with disabilities. We wouldn't want to pull that down into rows because it would be, ooh, that's really hard to read. So we put it back up into filters. We click on yes, I want to look at students with disabilities, and then I want to see the by race as well. So you can see both. So that's one way to simplify your data. And again, just like we did before, you can interchange, achievement level with learning gains or level 3+. It just depends on what you want to look at. So that is the training on how to create specific examples of pivot tables. If you would like to see how to kind of format your tables and create charts for presentations and such, access the next training available.